she was broke. Completely, utterly broke. 3 maxed-out credit cards. An overdrawn account. That suffocating feeling that there was no way out. But in 17 months exactly, she was holding a check for $1.2 million. Have you ever felt like the universe was conspiring against your bank account? That no matter how hard you worked, how much you saved, how meticulously you planned, money simply evaporated from your hands like water. I know that. Anguish. That feeling of always being behind, always owing, always one step behind the life you truly deserve. But what happened to Emily Carter? Emily Carter, an entrepreneur from Chicago, will make you question everything you think you know about money, because she didn't use spreadsheets. She didn't take investment courses. She didn't change jobs. She discovered a technique, a specific technique, developed by a woman most people have never heard of, but who transformed the lives of thousands over a century ago. Catherine Kuhlman. And before you think this is just another warmed-over law of attraction story, stop, take a deep breath, because what I'm about to reveal has nothing to do with silly visualizations or forced positive thinking. This is different. This is scientific. This is proven. Emily discovered this technique on a Thursday in March. She was in her office staring at a pile of bills she couldn't pay when she received a text from a friend. "You need to read this," the text said, with a link to an old book from 1925, The Game of Life and How to Play It, by Catherine Kuhlman. Emily almost deleted the message. Another self-help book, she thought. More empty promises. But something made her click. Maybe desperation. Maybe intuition. Maybe that whispered voice that appears when we're at rock bottom. And on page 47 of that book, Emily found the key, the technique Catherine called, the word that opens all doors. It wasn't affirmation. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't any of those techniques you've already tried, and that didn't work. It was something completely different, something that engages a part of your brain you didn't even know existed. Emily tested it the first week. An unexpected $15,000 contract appeared out of nowhere. Coincidence? That's what she thought. She tested it the second week. An old client paid a debt she'd already written off, $28,000. By the third week, she stopped calling it coincidence, because the numbers don't lie. And when you apply this specific technique in the exact way Catherine taught, things start to move. Money starts flowing from directions you never imagined. But here's what almost no one tells you about Catherine Kuhlman. She wasn't your average spiritual guru. She was a practical woman who lived in New York City at the beginning of the 20th century, at a time when women could barely have bank accounts. And yet, she unlocked secrets about money and abundance that make today's top financial experts look like amateurs. Her technique is so specific, so precise, that when you apply it correctly, it's as if an invisible frequency is switched on inside you. A frequency that attracts exactly what you need, when you need it, in the way you need it. Emily told me that by the 3rd month, she had paid off her credit cards. By the 6th month, she had an emergency fund. By the 9th month, she was buying a condo in cash. And by the 17th month, the $1.2 million check. The result of a project that appeared in her life as if someone had written her name in the universe and added a delivery address. But before I reveal exactly what this technique is, you need to understand one thing about Catherine Kuhlman that will completely change your perspective on money. Catherine discovered that there's a specific language the universe understands, a specific way of communicating that makes things materialize physically in your reality. It's not English. It's not Spanish. It's not any human language. It's the language of absolute certainty. And when you master this language, when you speak fluently with the universe at this specific frequency, the doors open, all the doors. Emily told me it was as if she'd spent her whole life knocking on the door, begging to get in, and suddenly discovered the key was in her hand the whole time. But here's the problem. Most people who read Catherine Kuhlman read it wrong. They focus on the obvious parts, the nice affirmations, the inspiring stories, and they completely miss the real technique, the specific method, the exact formula that makes everything work. It's like having a cake recipe and ignoring the secret ingredients that make all the difference. Emily almost made that mistake, almost missed the true technique, until one Friday, rereading chapter 5 for the third time, she saw it. There, hidden between two stories, was the golden key, the technique Catherine used to transform the lives of hundreds of people in the 1920s. The same technique Emily applied to materialize $1.2 million. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you now. But first, you need to understand why this technique is so powerful, why it works when everything else fails. Catherine discovered that the universe operates on specific patterns, like a code, like a cosmic programming language. And when you align your mind, your words, and your actions with these specific patterns, you literally program reality to bring you what you want. It's not magic. It's applied quantum physics. It's advanced neuroscience disguised as spirituality. It's the bridge between what you want and what you receive. Emily told me that in the first few days of applying the technique, she felt a strange sensation, as if something inside her had been activated after years of sleeping, as if an invisible antenna had begun to pick up signals that had always been in the air, but she'd never known how to tune in. And then, the synchronicities began. First, small ones, an unexpected discount here, an early payment there, an opportunity that appeared out of nowhere. Then, bigger ones, contracts arriving without her looking, clients paying more than she'd asked for, money coming from sources she didn't even remember existed. And finally, the grand manifestation, the dream project, the contract that changed everything, $1.2 million. But here's what impresses me most about Emily's story. It's not the amount, it's the speed. 17 months. From broke to millionaire in 17 months. Using a technique from 1925. That makes you think, doesn't it? How many powerful secrets are hidden in old books that everyone ignores because they prefer the latest trends? How many golden keys are covered in dust in libraries, waiting for someone brave enough to try them? Florence Scovel Shinn died in 1940, but her techniques still work. They still transform lives. They still materialize dreams. Because she didn't discover a trend. She discovered a law. A universal law that works regardless of time, country, or economic situation. A law that worked for Marina. That's working for hundreds of other people right now. And that will work for you if you apply it exactly as I'm going to teach you. The specific technique that Florence called the word that opens all doors has 3 precise components, 3 steps that must be followed in a specific order, with a specific frequency, using specific words. Skip a step, change the order, use different words, and it doesn't work. It's like a chemical recipe. All the elements need to be there, in the right proportions, at the right temperature. Marina learned this the hard way. In her first attempts, she improvised, adapted, tried to improve the technique. Result? Nothing. It was only when she followed Florence's instructions, exactly, word for word, step by step, that things started to happen. And when they started, it was like an avalanche of abundance. The first component of the technique is what Florence called the recognition of the infinite source. It's not gratitude. It's not blind faith. It's the scientific recognition of a mathematical truth. The universe is abundant by nature. Scarcity is not a natural law. It's a mental construct. Florence understood this decades before quantum physicists proved that we live in a universe of infinite possibilities. Marina told me that when she really understood this, when she stopped believing in scarcity and began to recognize the natural abundance, it was as if a giant door opened in her mind. Suddenly, she could see opportunities that were always there, but were invisible to her before. As if someone had turned on the lights in a dark room, and she discovered she was surrounded by treasures all along. The second component is the specific declaration of intention. This is where most people make mistakes. They make generic requests to the universe. I want more money. I want abundance. I want to prosper. Florence discovered that the universe doesn't work with generalities. It works with specificities. Marina wanted exactly $1.2 million to pay off her debts, buy an apartment, and have a reserve to invest in her business. Specific, detailed, crystal clear. And the universe delivered exactly that. Exactly $1.2 million. The third component is the most powerful. It's what Florence called the action of absolute certainty. It's not waiting for things to happen. It's acting as if they have already happened. Marina started behaving like someone who already had $1.2 million. Not spending money she didn't have, but making decisions, making choices, creating plans like someone who knew the money was coming. And this absolute certainty, this unwavering conviction, is like a magnet for abundance. The universe feels your certainty and responds at the same frequency. When Marina combined these three components, exactly as Florence taught, when she applied the complete technique in the right order, with the right frequency, her life changed. In 17 months, from broke to millionaire, using a technique from 100 years ago. And now I'm going to reveal exactly how to apply each of these components. Like Marina did, like Florence did, like hundreds of people have done over a century. Word for word, step by step. No secrets, no omissions. Everything you need to know to start materializing abundance in your life today. Because Florence Scovel Shinn's technique isn't theory. It's practice, it's action, it's results. So let's start with the first component, the recognition of the infinite source. Florence discovered that before asking the universe for anything, you need to recognize a fundamental truth. A truth that she expressed with a specific phrase. A phrase that Marina repeated every day. Exactly as Florence taught, there is an infinite source of supply, and that source is my supply now. Seems simple, doesn't it? But listen carefully. Each word was chosen strategically. There is, not I believe there is. There is, period. It's a fact, not a belief. Infinite source, not limited, not conditional, not dependent on economics, politics, or circumstances. My supply now. Not in the future, not when I deserve it, not when conditions improve. Now, Marina told me that in the first few days she felt strange repeating this phrase. It seemed a little silly considering she was broke. But Florence knew something Marina didn't yet know. She knew that our subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between reality and consistent repetition. When you repeat a specific truth with conviction for long enough, your subconscious mind begins to accept it as reality. And when your subconscious mind accepts something as reality, it restructures your perception to find evidence of that reality. Suddenly, Marina began to notice opportunities that had always been there. She began to see possibilities that were invisible before. She began to attract people and situations that confirmed this new truth. But here's the secret that nobody tells you. You can't just repeat the words mechanically. Florence discovered that there's a specific frequency at which this phrase needs to be said. A frequency she called the tone of divine authority. It's not shouting. It's not whispering. It's speaking with the same conviction you use to say your own name. Marina practiced for 2 weeks until she found this tone. until she could say these words with absolute certainty, without a hint of doubt in her voice. And it was exactly when she found that tone that the first $15,000 contract appeared. Now let's go to the second component, the specific declaration of intention. This is where Florence separated the amateurs from the professionals, where she revealed the secret that makes all the difference between wanting and receiving. Florence discovered that the universe is like a cosmic GPS system. It can take you anywhere, but it needs to know exactly where you want to go. "I want more money" is like typing, "Take me somewhere cool" into GPS. Too vague. The universe doesn't know what to do with that. But "I want to receive exactly $1, $2 million in the next 18 months to pay off my debts, buy my own apartment, and have reserves to invest in my business." That's a specific address. Emily wrote her declaration on a Tuesday in April. Word for word, number for number, deadline for deadline. And here's something that will surprise you. She didn't choose the amounts randomly. Florence taught that your specific declaration needs to be based on 3 exact criteria. First, it has to be something you genuinely desire, not something you think you should desire. Second, it has to be specific enough to be measurable and tangible. Third, it has to have a defined deadline, but realistic within your current reality. Emily wanted exactly $1.2 million because she had calculated precisely $400,000 to pay off debts, $500,000 for an apartment, $300,000 for reserves and investment. Specific, measurable, with a clear purpose. The 18-month deadline? Florence taught that large financial manifestations need time to materialize through the natural channels of the physical world. Too little time creates anxiety. Too much time creates procrastination. 18 months was the perfect time frame for something of this magnitude, and Emily achieved it in 17, 1 month ahead of schedule. But let's get to the most powerful component, the third component. What Florence considered the soul of the entire technique, the action of absolute certainty. This is where the magic really happens, where the technique stops being words and becomes physical reality. Florence discovered that there's a giant difference between hoping something will happen and knowing something will happen. Hoping is passive, knowing is active. When you really know something is going to happen, you act differently. You make different decisions. You make different choices. Emily told me that in the 3rd week of applying the technique, something shifted in her demeanor, in the way she spoke to clients, in the confidence with which she presented proposals, as if she knew a secret that no one else knew. And she did know. Florence taught that when you have absolute certainty about your financial future, you emit a specific frequency, a frequency that people feel, even without being able to explain what they're feeling. Emily started receiving more interesting proposals. Clients started accepting amounts they had previously refused. Opportunities started appearing from unexpected places, because certainty is contagious. Confidence is magnetic. But how do you develop this absolute certainty when your account is overdrawn? Florence had a specific strategy for this, a strategy she called wearing the future in the present. Not spending money you don't have. That would be irresponsible. But starting to make decisions, make plans, create mental structures, as if the money were already arriving. Emily started researching apartments, not to buy yet, but to know exactly what she wanted when the money arrived. She started studying investments, not to invest yet, but to be prepared when she had the reserves. She started acting like someone who knew that abundance was coming. And this shift in energy, this transformation in the frequency she emitted, was felt by everyone around her, including the universe, which responded at the same frequency, with opportunities, with connections, with synchronicities, and eventually with $1.2 million. But here's something Emily discovered that's crucial to the technique's success. You need to apply the 3 components simultaneously, every day, for at least 90 consecutive days. Florence discovered that 90 days are necessary to completely reprogram mental patterns related to money. Less than that, the change doesn't take hold. More than that is unnecessary if you apply it correctly. Emily applied it for 120 days. Not because she needed to, but because the results were so consistent that she didn't want to stop. And here's the most important part: how to apply it exactly. First component: every morning, as soon as you wake up before doing anything else, there is an infinite source of supply. And that source is my source now. Repeat 3 times, with the tone of divine authority, with the same certainty that you would say the sun will rise tomorrow. Second component: every night, before going to sleep, read your specific declaration of intention. Read it as if it were a contract you've already signed with the universe. Third component: throughout the entire day, act with absolute certainty. Make decisions like someone who knows that abundance is coming. Simple? Yes. Easy? Not necessarily, because Florence's technique requires discipline. It requires consistency. It requires faith when the results haven't yet appeared. Emily told me that the first week was the hardest. She felt silly repeating those phrases. She questioned whether it would really work. But in the second week, something changed. The words started to sound natural. The certainty began to grow. In the third week, the first result appeared: a $15,000 contract. And from there, it was like a snowball rolling down a hill. Each result strengthened her faith in the technique. Each manifestation increased her absolute certainty. Each synchronicity confirmed that she was on the right path. Until 17 months later, she was holding the check for $1.2 million. Exactly as she had declared. Exactly as she had visualized. Exactly as Florence had promised it would happen. But let me tell you something that might change your perspective forever. Florence Scovel Shinn didn't invent this technique. She discovered it. She discovered a universal law that has always existed, always worked, but that very few people knew how to apply correctly. A law that worked in the 19th century, worked in the 20th century, is working now in the 21st century, and will continue to work forever. Because it doesn't depend on the economy. It doesn't depend on politics. It doesn't depend on luck or circumstances. It only depends on your ability to align your mind, your words, and your actions with the universe's natural patterns of abundance. Emily understood this in the 9th month of application, when she realized that she wasn't forcing anything to happen. She was simply removing the blockages that prevented things from flowing naturally, like unclogging a pipe. The water always wants to flow. You just need to remove what's blocking the flow. Abundance always wants to reach you. You just need to remove the mental blocks, preventing it from arriving. And Catherine Kuhlman's technique does exactly that. It removes the blocks, clears the channel, opens the floodgates, so that abundance flows naturally from the infinite source, right into your bank account. Emily told me something I'll never forget. I spent years fighting the current, trying to swim upstream. When I discovered Catherine Kuhlman's technique, I learned to swim with the current, and I discovered that the river had always been taking me where I wanted to go. That's the true magic of the technique. It doesn't create abundance. It removes the resistance to the abundance that already exists. It doesn't attract money. It removes the blocks preventing money from arriving. It doesn't force the universe to give you what you want. It aligns you with what the universe already wants to give you. And what the universe wants to give you is far more than you imagine, far more than you've allowed yourself to dream, far more than you think you deserve. Catherine Kuhlman knew this. Emily discovered this. And now, you know this too. The only question that remains is, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to keep it as just another interesting theory, filed away in the drawer of your mind? Or are you going to apply it, exactly as Emily applied it, exactly as Catherine Kuhlman taught? Because the technique doesn't work by osmosis. It doesn't work just because you know it. It works because you apply it. Emily could have read about the technique and not applied it. She could have applied it for a week and given up. She could have applied it inconsistently and not gotten results. But she chose to trust. She chose to be disciplined. She chose to apply it exactly as Catherine Kuhlman had taught. And 17 months later, she had $1, $2 million. The same choice is in front of you now. You can close this video, go on with your normal life, and continue with the same financial results as always. Or you can decide that the time has come to test a technique that worked 100 years ago, is working today, and will continue working as long as universal laws exist. Emily made that choice on a Thursday, in March, broke, desperate, hopeless. 17 months later, a millionaire. Catherine Kuhlman made this discovery in the early 1920s. She shared it with the world through her books. 100 years later, it's still transforming lives. And yours? Your life could be the next. If you apply it, if you trust it, if you follow exactly the 3 components I've just revealed to you. Because in the end, the only difference between you and Emily isn't luck. It's not talent. It's not family background. It's application. It's discipline. It's the courage to test something that may seem too simple to be true, but that works precisely because it's simple. Catherine Kuhlman discovered that the most powerful laws of the universe are also the most elegant, the most direct, the most accessible. Emily proved that these laws still work in the 21st century. Now it's your turn to prove that they work in your life. The infinite source is waiting. Your specific declaration is waiting to be written. Your absolute certainty is waiting to be developed. And your results are waiting to materialize. Exactly as it happened with Emily. Exactly as Catherine Kuhlman knew it would happen. The only question is, when will you begin?